Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these match recaps, the Pitchside Podcast episodes, and all of the content on the channel. I'm at PSP on Twitter, Pitchside Pod on Instagram, and you can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. And let's get, of course, to what happened in Der Klassiker in Germany, the biggest game in the Bundesliga this week in round 26 between Bayern Munich, between round 24 really, between Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. And I think I'm going to be sounding a lot repetitive here because, you know, it was pretty much the same story. Bayern Munich started bad in this game. Of course, Borussia Dortmund with a lot of injuries, trying to make way and make shift, really starting with some sort of, you know, almost a back three, but not quite. No Witsel, of course, no Guerrero, no Jadon Sancho. Those kind of injuries were really effective in this game, I think. After the first 10 minutes, Erling Haaland, it was Erling Haaland's show in the first 10 minutes. And again, starting with someone like Niklas Süle, he's not going to give you a great defensive performance as a right back every time, and he was scored out twice in the first 10 minutes. And Borussia Dortmund started strong. They scored twice, but thanks to Erling Haaland. But then, of course, it was the Robert Lewandowski show after that. Bayern, of course, started again slowly. They didn't quite get, you know, through with the game. They didn't quite get into the game until the 15 minutes really into the game, where they started making a lot of chances. And then, of course, they turned the tide towards them and scored thanks to Robert Lewandowski in the 21st minute. And, of course, by the end of the first half, it was 2-2 thanks to a penalty scored again by Robert Lewandowski. The second half wasn't quite as entertaining or as enjoyable or as open or as, you know, filled with chances as the first half. Borussia Dortmund had an opportunity early on in the second half for Thorgan Hazard, who missed it, but then, you know, Borussia Dortmund, I think, sat quite deep in the back, knowing that they don't have the potential to really dominate the game and go forward against a side like Bayern with no Sancho. And then, of course, Haaland was pulled off through injury, ending his night and taking a lot of sting out of Borussia Dortmund's attack. And you knew when Haaland was out, it is impossible for Borussia Dortmund to dominate the game or continue dominating the game without his pace, without his presence up front to stretch the defense for Bayern Munich. And then, of course, Bayern Munich took over, didn't quite hit as many chances as we expected, but certainly when they got the opportunities to score, they did quite well. Leon Goretzka scoring in the 89th minute, of course, to make it 3-2 for Bayern, clinching the winner, and Robert Lewandowski on a hat-trick. He scores his hat-trick, 31 goals again in the Bundesliga this season, 14 against Borussia Dortmund in all competitions for him, and of course is on his way to breaking the record of Gerd Müller, probably showing Erling Haaland who's daddy in the Bundesliga at the moment. I mean, Bayern Munich were really good, at least in the second half. They dominated the game as you expect them to do. They're a side that like to dominate. They like to really, you know, get themselves on the ball and control the ball. And again, once Haaland was out, it was impossible really to just imagine Borussia Dortmund actually going for it and opening themselves up for Bayern, unlike what they did in the first game, where Joshua Kimmich went out injured and Javi Martinez was introduced in that game, and a lot of things changed. This time, Javi Martinez was introduced for another injury in Jerome Boateng this time, but fortunately for him, he didn't have to deal with Haaland, and he didn't have to deal with Royce as well, who were both substituted. Julian Brandt, Tigges and Jude Bellingham, also Reinier coming late, didn't really affect the game. It was Bayern Munich's game all along in the second half, and particularly again after the exit of Haaland to injury. The last half an hour, Bayern, you know, mounted up the pressure and scored twice late on in the game to make it 4-2, an emphatic victory, a victory with a message for Leipzig, who are going to be, of course, their first game after the international break in April. A message, I think, for the other European giants who think Bayern are going to be falling down. Simply, Bayern refuse to lose. They will give away goals, they will concede goals, but they will outscore everyone. You know, defensively, Bayern with their usual selves, really playing the high line, opening themselves pretty high in the first half. Again, not starting really well, which has become, you know, a trend for Bayern to not start well in the first 10 minutes or so, conceding twice, and the game looked out of hands really in the first 10 minutes. But Borussia Dortmund, quite frankly, they have this sort of almost naive nature about them. They don't know how to deal with the game when they take lead. It was in particular against Bayern. Like, this is the third time where they take the lead in the Klassiker against Bayern, and this is only this season. Like, they took the lead 3 times in all the Klassikers that they play against Bayern Munich. The same, the couple that ended with 3-2, both in the Super Cup and in the Bundesliga in the first fixture, and then of course in this game they take the lead not only 1-0 but 2-0 inside 10 minutes, but then they just drop off and don't know how to manage the game from then in. And of course, Bayern having more experience than Borussia Dortmund players, most of them at least, and having more character, I think, than most of the Borussia Dortmund players, showed them who's the real boss and showed them how to manage the game. Clearly a very deserved victory for Bayern, who now go up the table again after losing that spot to Leipzig early on in the day after defeating Freiburg 3-0 for Leipzig. They're now back to the top, 2 points in front of Leipzig, and it's going to be really interesting to see how their head-to-head clash is going to go in early April. That's probably going to be the defining clash of where the Bundesliga is going to go at the Red Bull Arena in the 4th of April. That's it from me for this match. Deserved victory for Bayern and Borussia Dortmund. Clearly, I mean, they were decent enough defensively. They shut down Bayern quite well in the second half for most of it, but they just couldn't cope and they collapsed late on. That's it from me for this match recaps. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSB. Like, share, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these match recaps and the Pitch Side podcast episodes. Also follow us on social media, Side PSB on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And until next time, after the game between Juventus and Lazio, I will be seeing you soon. Goodbye.